On this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast, how much debt do I need to have in order to file bankruptcy? So welcome back to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast. My name is Sean Yesner, owner and founder of Yesner Law, and I have with me, as always, your financial coach, George Curbello. How you doing, George?
Sean, it is a pleasure to be with you here. I have to say that it's just good to be here, man. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling the good vibes. Let's put it like that.
It is a pleasure to be alive, as far as I'm concerned right now.
All I have to say, though, is I'm still living in Florida. I'm still learning that it is... Oh, my God, the bugs. The bugs. Oh, I went to walk the dog. I live near a preserve, so, of course, that's probably strike one on me right there. But walking the dog, thinking like, oh, this is fantastic. Wearing shorts, thinking, wow, I live in Florida. You got to wear shorts. No. It's the worst idea ever. I think I need to invest in a beekeeper suit because walking around with these no-see-ums and mosquitoes and all of these kind of things, I don't like it. I think I want to go back into snow.
It must be that northern blood because, I experience no-see-ums, but for whatever reason, they don't. They tend to leave me alone.
I mean, they always say it's a blood type kind of thing. If you're O positive, O negative, compared to AB, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's a science probably behind that, but I don't care. These things feast on me, and I'm not happy. I'm not happy with it. But other than that, I'm feeling good. I'm able to make my mortgage payments and everything. That's always a positive, right?
Have you made the first one?
Yes, I'm already, I think, like four deep. So I only have $800 million payments left.
Nice.
I think it's the whole 356 or whatever it is. But I am paying extra, so trying to shave off a few years. From an interest standpoint. So, you always recommend, right? If you're going to get into that mortgage, try and make it as short as you can.
Here's something interesting, and it's not something that we had planned to talk about today, and so I'm just going to bring it up on the fly and see what happens. But so I haven't quite, I've signed up for Money Max. I'm working the Money Max system. I was actually, speaking of bugs, I was down for the count this week. I was feeling terrible. My kids shared with me their stomach bugs, so that was lovely. That was amazing. So I didn't get to do my Money Max, the formal setup of everything, but I've got it kind of up and running. But something interesting came up. So when I refinanced my house, I also took out a $15,000 line of credit on the house. Now, the one that I took out, and I assume most of them, there's a 10-year draw period. So for 10 years, you can draw against it, you can pay it off, you can draw against it, you can pay it off. Once that 10 years is over, it basically locks, and over the next 15, you pay it back principal and interest like any other kind of loan. So I get a letter from the HELOC company. My draw period ends here in a couple of weeks. By the time this episode comes out, probably be a week or so from the draw period ending.
Sure.
And I've paid down about half. It was a $15,000 line of credit, and I probably owe about $6 or $7 grand on it. But now the house is appreciated in value. I've been paying down my mortgage.
Yep.
So I probably have better than 50% equity in my home. The bank is offering to renew the line of credit and increase the line.
Nice.
And so I'm thinking, why don't I do it? And that way I have that money sitting there in the next 10 years if I need it. I can draw down against it. And then I'm even thinking, well, wait a minute. If I'm using the Money Max system, why don't I draw to the maximum $15,000? So get a little infusion of cash here as we go into summer and summer camps and vacations and trips and all that kind of stuff. Let me get a little bit of an infusion in cash, bring the line up to the max 15 the current line is, and then refinance it. Have some room on it for if I need it in the future. So I think that's the direction that I'm going to go.
What's the, what are the priorities, goals that you're trying to accomplish if you did this? Is it more just getting the debt down or being a little bit more comfortable? Like, what are you looking to accomplish with this move?
I think renewing the line of credit is a given.
Yep.
Because if I need quick access to emergency cash, it's there. If something happened where I had to do something,
like a large amount, not just
because there's going to be 5 figures available on the line of credit. So something really bad happens, I've got the money there on the line. Otherwise, in my mind, the way I've treated it the last 10 years, it's just a mortgage that I pay every month.
Yeah.
I don't recall the last time. I think I might have drawn on it once after we took out the line. I might have drawn on it once. But other than that, I never drew on the line of credit. I just paid it down.
That makes sense. When does it become a problem, though? Because we always think, oh, HELOC, and these are all negative turns depending on which financial advisor you talk to from that standpoint. But where do you think a HELOC could be of benefit for folks in today's world?
So here's my concern. The new rate that I would get on the new HELOC with the particular bank I'm talking to is between 10 and 11%.
Okay, it's a little high.
I have one kind of big credit card from everything that went down with my wife and everything. I've got one credit card that's kind of high that is at about 20%.
Okay.
So the other thing I'm kind of thinking, there's still room if I get the new line of credit. There's room on the new line of credit to pay off that credit card and take a 20% interest rate down to about a 10%.
Right.
Interest rate.
That's good.
Yeah. But then the challenge there where I see a lot of people get into trouble is after they do that, they then run up the credit card again.
Right.
And so the reason I've always been against this kind of stuff is because a credit card can't take your house away. If I don't pay the credit card back, they can't take my house. If I don't pay the line of credit back, they can take my house.
Yeah.
So why am I taking debt that will not impact my house and turning it into debt that will create the house, that will impact the house? Now, I think I'm hopefully disciplined enough that
you won't
I won't run up the credit card again.
And that's the idea. Well, I mean, you can talk to your trusted financial coach if you have any questions from that standpoint. But I agree with you. Most people, when it comes to debt consolidation or any of these HELOCs, or the technique and it's good if you have the discipline in place.
Right.
So doesn't mean close the credit card out or anything like that, but you have to put it somewhere where you can't use it. You don't want to, there's a reason why you're putting yourself in a situation where you want to pay this debt down so you can do more.
Right.
Have more later down the road to be able to do those. Taking advantage of that, say, yeah, fantastic, lower interest rate. You can probably pay this off at a faster clip, but will you be disciplined enough to be able to say, let's not run this. There's no need to use the credit card for that purpose in the future.
Well, and what I'm hoping too is, for example, right now I do all my grocery shopping, all the gas shopping. I do a lot on my debit card.
Okay.
If I can get the credit card zeroed out, it'll be the same money, but I charge it on the credit card, pay it down to zero at the end of the month. The particular card I'm looking at paying off is a points card.
Of course.
Is a reward points card. So if I can get it down to zero, and I can only put those expenses on it that I normally spend every month, that I'd be spending anyway every month, and I can pay it off at the end of the month, now I'm generating points that'll be cash back, that'll be additional revenue.
Yeah, if a lot of if though, that's my biggest concern. It's the technique. Sounds good.
The discipline.
Where will you? It's the follow through, and I think that's where do you have the and of course you have the discipline. You wrote a book in regards to those kind of things, so I get the feeling you have that in place. Advice wise to others is if it sounds good, from a technique standpoint, but where are you emotionally? Where's your mindset to be able to execute and follow through on a lot of this?
My fear here is. You're right. I think I've got the discipline to manage it.
Yep.
My fear here is, am I really so I pay about $500 a month to the credit card. So am I going to either save some of that because it'll be less of a payment on the HELOC. I can pay less than $500 to the HELOC and still pay it down over time. Or can I, in other words, am I going to save myself a little bit of money by doing this strategy and still pay off the debt? I think in my mind, that's my concern.
Yeah. Well, going back, what is it that you're looking to accomplish as part of this? Is the overall having a little bit of relief, saving on interest? Is this going to say, at the end, I'm assuming it's, get out of debt. That's right. The ultimate goal. We get that. But in the meantime, is if it does provide you some relief, meaning you're maybe not as stressed because, like 20% interest. How am I going to pay this off 6 years for,
Right.
through the program? It's really more of, okay, like putting these small changes, is that going to give you another year, less time because you're now paying less interest?
And I think that may be the ultimate answer is I can plug all the numbers into the Money Max account system. And if it says by borrowing on the HELOC to pay off the card, I would reduce my debt-free date by 2 years,
Yep.
then it makes sense to do it.
Totally.
If
Yep.
it says the debt-free date doesn't change or increases, then I wouldn't do it.
Then it's an option, but
Right.
it's we always looking at it as, what am I getting?
Right.
What's gonna it's got to be some type of good feeling or positive vibe or a great result that's gonna.
Right.
So I totally get it. But I love the fact you're doing the research. You're looking at all your options and seeing what might work for you in the long term. So fantastic job there, bud.
See.
I have to say though, I did come across the situation, and I always I have new clients coming in. Everybody's like paycheck to paycheck. I want to make sure I have more money at the end of the month than more month at the end of the money, right? So that's
Right.
everybody coming in, and we have that conversation. But I did meet with someone, and they got me. I think about 20 minutes into the conversation, it was, when should they talk to Sean? It was one of those situations where there's just not enough income coming in. This person has business. They have a business, feels like they're not bringing in enough income from that business, and they seem to be borrowing from the business to, deal with a lot of personal issues, personal situations. Now, overall, and I'm trying to keep it obviously so that no one, there's no one kind of called out, but medical debt, going through maybe some cancer, scares, and going through that kind of situation. And as an entrepreneur, if you don't work, right, you don't get paid.
Right.
So unless your business has products or your people working for you, usually if you're the breadwinner, if you're the person who says, hey, I am the job, I am the business. If you're not working, you're obviously, if you're sick, you're not working, you're not getting paid. So that person got into that kind of situation where, a combination of situations where it's like, okay, business is not making money. From a personal standpoint, you still got to pay rent, you still got to eat, you got to, do these kind of things. And of course, we still make decisions where you question, right? So let me get you the point in the conversation where I got nervous. Okay. That's when I started getting nervous. They just took out a loan. They's like, I need a car to get around. Okay, fantastic. What used clunker did you have that you need to get? It's like, no. It was a new, not even, or semi-new, like 1 year old or something like that. But it was a new car to them. Not expensive. You would think $25,000. You're thinking like, okay, that's reasonable for a car. It's not like a Tesla or something like that.
Right.
But no. The payment was $725 a month. Okay, 5-year loan. And the interest rate was a whopping 20%. That was the moment that I felt like my soul, detached from my body,
Right.
because I was like, what do you do in that situation? And then of course the first payment is due this month, and the question for them was, how do you, are we ready to make that payment? And it's like, no, I'm not going to be working. I'm not going to have enough income to come in and I don't think I'll be able to make the first payment. So it's like, okay, I mean, first of all, bad on the dealership that gave the loan to the person.
Why did this person feel it necessary to buy a new car?
Well, I think we all get sucked into the same thing of like, I need a new and reliable car. I need a reliable car.
But I mean, so for when I got mine, it was because my lease was expiring. If I didn't get a new car, they were going to take my leased car away.
Yep.
So I needed to get a new car.
No.
Why did this person get a new car?
So the justification behind it was, I need to be able to get around. It looked like they didn't have a vehicle. They had a vehicle that was as part of a divorce, that happened in that situation. So let's just put it, a lot of life happened to this client.
So these numbers may have actually even included a trade-in.
Correct.
Wow.
That is correct. So you have medical debt, you have business debt. So I'm trying to separate the personal debt from the business. But behind, and here's the thing, you're starting to be behind on debt. They've done a great job to at least stay current, even though there's a lot of debt. There was debt to stay current. They were at least current on their bills.
Didn't you also mention IRS debt?
Oh, that's correct. I wanted to have, that was the next layer of, the second time my heart stopped and my soul started leaving my body. From a business standpoint, we haven't paid taxes in 2 years. So that might be a problem from that standpoint. And then I'm assuming that if we haven't done the business taxes, we haven't done the personal taxes in 2 years. Taxes from, I guess, a divorce that also may come into play, but they're thinking maybe $75K.
Is it unpaid taxes but filed returns or unfiled returns?
It feels like it's more unfiled returns for 2 years. So yes, it's just that I'm glad they were planning to see a CPA and a tax person to kind of figure out. It's hard to kind of determine how bad the situation when you don't know what the situation's all about. So again, this was a 2-hour meeting, and I the whole time I was like, Sean, what would you do? How would you handle this? What would you manage? I can't. Obviously, I'm focusing on a lot of the how do we get here, behavior wise, what mindset. We need a total new mindset. And the person knew that they are like in deep doo-doo. This is a huge mountain. This is an Everest of a situation that we've got to get through. But if there's no income, I just don't know where do you start? Do you just start to let the bills fall behind and just focus on the four? I always look at the four. You got to live somewhere. You got to work. You got to eat. You need the lights on to be able to, kind of live. So for me, that's always the focal point is you got to have that stability at home so that you can go and figure out what life is. But do you just start letting the bills kind of, start to go behind because you don't have enough to cover that?
So
I mean, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just threw up all over you there.
and I don't want to use that term right now, but I kind of agree with you. I mean, I will never tell a client to intentionally fall behind on debt.
Correct.
I don't think it's proper to do that.
Correct.
Now, I will say that if you want to try to negotiate with your creditors, there is no incentive for them to negotiate with you on a loan that's current.
That's correct.
So you do risk, they either won't settle with you or you got to fall behind in order to convince them to settle with you. So, but I do think if it's a choice between buying groceries or paying Visa, buy your groceries. Don't worry about Visa. Buy your groceries. And so I've always kind of taken that approach to things. But I think where I would start first, I'd get the returns filed. Get the returns filed because number one, that sets the amount that you do owe.
Right. Right. Makes sense.
It also stops interest and penalties from accruing because it's not like there's this unknown number that the IRS wants
they know the
to
number
get from you. You now have the number.
Right.
It starts the statute of limitations. So if you file something in the return and for some reason have made some kind of mistake where maybe more taxes might have been owed had you filed something a little bit differently, there's a statute of limitations. If I think it's 6 years goes by, there's a 6-year statute of limitations. So it starts the statute of limitations clock from ticking once you get the returns filed.
Okay.
Plus it caps everything. Plus it makes everything a little bit more of a known number.
Right.
Plus there's things we can do. The IRS will negotiate like any other creditor will negotiate. So I would, if in all of this, I would say priority number one is the IRS.
And that's always the case. I think even with just regular debt. When I work with clients, a lot of it is the first question is, do you have taxes? Do we have past taxes? Do we need to? Because that's the first that you want the KGB. I mean the government off of your back when it comes to your debts. So for me, it's like, yeah, let's take care of those guys first, get them off, and then figure out what we do next. So
Yeah.
Totally makes sense. Okay, I'm glad at least I agreed, because that's one of the things I said. It's like we can't. I didn't know about the limitations and the statutes, and that's why you're a smart man and you're the lawyer. But I got the feeling that you need. For me, it's the unknown. We got to eliminate the unknown. Let's understand exactly what we're working with. Then we can set a game plan to move forward.
Yeah, eliminate as much of the unknown as we can.
Yeah.
The thing that bothers me the least is the medical debt.
Okay.
The medical debt. What they say about medical debt is true. You can negotiate it away. You can make payment plans on it. The medical debt isn't going to, they can't take your house away, especially if you live in Florida.
Okay.
They can't take your house away. They're not going to garnish wages. I mean, medical debt, of all the different various types of debt that are out there, medical, I think, is the least intimidating of all of that debt. So
Interesting.
On the list of priorities, I would put medical debt at the bottom.
Okay.
And partially they understand. I mean, you just went through some kind of medical issue that they helped you out with. They're going to understand the challenges of making payments. So I think I would put medical debt last on this list.
Okay.
Some of it, going back to IRS debt real quick, if bankruptcy becomes an option, number one, bankruptcy won't eliminate IRS debt. IRS debt is typically non-dischargeable. Now, it can be dischargeable, and the general rule of thumb is that the debt is more than, I think, 3.5 years old, and it was assessed more than 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
It might be 3 years, 3.5 years, something like that. If I get a person with IRS debt in, we'll formally
have to
go
figure
through
that.
analysis. Yeah. But the other thing there is from the assessment date. So we're in 2024 right now.
Yeah.
If you have unfiled returns from 2018 and you say, well, it's 6 years old, well, number one, if they're unfiled, there's no statute of limitations running, and dischargeability depends on the assessment date. If the tax returns aren't filed, the taxes haven't been assessed yet.
Okay, so that's the more delay there that's
Right.
where it works against you.
Now,
Gotcha.
if you filed returns in 2018 and you owe the IRS some money, it is possible that those debts could be discharged in a 2024 bankruptcy. There's a test, and there's a couple other factors and some hoops we got to jump through. But one of the other reasons to get the returns filed is you have to have your returns filed if you want to file a Chapter 13 case.
Gotcha.
It's not necessary in a 7, but at least you're starting that dischargeability clock in a 7.
Okay, so definitely good recommendation. And I think a lot of people avoid the conversation just because of the fact that it's like, now if I file, it's a reality, and it's
Right.
But there are benefits to not just with the unknown piece, but there are benefits that from a legal standpoint that will keep you good there too.
And again, I mean, that's the IRS does allow for an extension. So if it's
True.
the 2023 return, file the extension and then go to a CPA later. Even for the business. Now, I think I know individuals are extended till October. Businesses are extended till September, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, something like that.
But you can extend the business and the personal return filing dates as well. So I would do that.
Take advantage. There's no shame in those kind of things. It just buys you. It's not just buying you time, but maybe saving money that would be necessary too. Because I would imagine CPA is not free.
No.
So you need to make sure we set aside a little bit of money. So giving you that extra time is valuable.
Right.
Okay.
In terms of the business, the thing that I always worry about in business debt situations is what has been guaranteed. So, for example, I guaranteed the lease payments to my landlord. I guaranteed the Yesner Law has a credit card that's personally guaranteed. So if Yesner Law were to go under, I would still owe the landlord for the rent payments, and I would still owe Visa for the Yesner Law card payments. So what business debts have been guaranteed? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, the business has to make more money.
Yeah.
If you want to fund this type of a lifestyle, now you could, I guess, tighten the belt and draw back and
Well, I mean, operational from a business standpoint, it's always spend less, bring in, obviously try to bring in as much income as possible. And sometimes it's raising your rates or change, having a new service or a new product, get all those kind of things. But the other thing too is, how do we drop operational costs? How do we make sure that you're as lean as possible when it comes to running the business? That could also have a detriment to the business if you
it could be looking at the profit and loss, looking at the expenses.
What's that again? A profit P&L? Oh,
P&L.
I'm sorry. I'm not
Look
a business major.
Another example, we switched our merchant services, our credit card processing.
Sure.
We switched the credit card processing from one company to another, and I had just forgotten. And so every month I wasn't charging anything. I wasn't running cards through the original processing company. I was running all the cards through the new processing company. But the old processing company was still charging me between $25 and $30 a month to have the ability to run cards through them.
Right, you forgot to.
And so I forgot to cancel them. And so I just canceled them. And $25. $25 is a box of paper every month. So
from a business standpoint, those $25 items could add up if you have 4 or 5 of them each month.
So what expenses can you cut? What expenses can you minimize? What expenses can you reduce? I remember our phone system. Our phone system's the other thing. I think I was paying something like $145 a month or something like that, and the guy that was doing my IT and my phone services had sold off the voice over IP services to another company.
Sure.
And, don't worry about it. There's not going to be a rate change. It'll be the same service. It'll be blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, my phone app works half the time when I'm trying to get voice over IP calls. And my phone expense is nearly doubled.
Ooh.
So now I'm looking for, okay, what does my contract say? How can I break it? Is there a specified term? And when that term is up, I'm going to move to a cheaper voice over IP company.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Those are little things you have to be aware of. You just can't have everything running on its own.
Right.
And as a business owner, that's one thing. But we do that even in our personal. We just have, I just have these internet subscriptions. I have all of these things but I've been paying them. It's just an automatic. And if we don't do a deep dive into that to be able to go, here's opportunities to save each month. You could be paying stuff for months, years, and not realize you haven't used it for such a long time.
Yeah, and it's the same for a business. What subscriptions do I have? I had another attorney email me the other day who said, I was thinking about joining this organization that is common to a lot of attorneys who do what I do, debt negotiation type attorneys. And I said to him, look, it was a really good organization. They had some really good continuing education credit. But at the end of the day, all they wanted from me was money, and I got tired of paying it. And I can get the same education from other sources. I can get the same resources from other sources.
Got it.
A lot of the resources that this particular organization provides, I can get for free on the internet. So
TikTok and YouTube, baby.
Yeah. Girl math.
I'm kidding.
I didn't see the need to pay this particular organization, the $600 a year price tag that they wanted.
Absolutely. But you have to make a decision. In some cases, you're just like, it's not a big, maybe I'll use it. We get into that mode. But I agree. If you're in that position where you need to make some huge, decisions, you have to sit back and look at your expenses to figure out what, do you really need it, or is it just something you want, or is it something you've never used and you're still paying for something that you don't? It's like, come on, guys, let's make a decision there. Let me ask you one thing though. The previous divorce for this person, those types of expenses coming into play as well. What are some of the things that we need to consider, like legal fees and separation of assets and just like what happens? Hey, we went from a dual income to a single income, and that's impacting as well. Are some of those things to be considered when it comes to bankruptcy too?
Some of those things can be considered. Yeah. Now, if you're getting child support or alimony, those are exempt income for purposes of the bankruptcy means test. If you have to pay child support or alimony, those are non-dischargeable, so you're not going to get out of paying those.
Gotcha.
A lot of the other thing you can do is contact your mortgage lender and hey, I just went through a divorce, went from 2 incomes to 1 income. The mortgage lender may be able to give you a loan modification or something like that in order to reduce your mortgage payments, somewhat, so you can look at it that way. You can also shop your homeowner's insurance and see if you can get cheaper home. These days,
right.
It's less of an increase, not really a decrease in homeowner's
Yeah,
insurance.
no, we're not that lucky.
But yeah, I mean, even to the extreme of, and gosh, I've even thought this from time to time. I love my house, and so far I can afford my house.
Yeah.
But my other thought is, do the 3 of us need to be in a house this big anymore?
Downsizing is common.
Could I sell? Now, again, the challenge that I have is in order to downsize, I still may have to kind of go up in price.
Yep.
Because
interest, you have a lower interest compared to what is today.
Go up.
Yeah.
Right now I'm able to get this HELOC that we talked about at the beginning of the episode because I have more than 50% equity in my home.
Sure.
If I sold my existing home and I used that money to buy a new home, I wouldn't have 50% equity.
Yeah, you're starting over. It's
right.
Basic. Yeah.
I mean, because if I sold my house right now and dropped down, from a 4-bedroom to a 3-bedroom, or maybe from a 4-bedroom 3-bath to a 4-bedroom 2-bath.
Yeah.
Something like that. So maybe I'm going from my house is worth, call it $600 now, so maybe I'm only going down to $450. I'm not going down.
Well, in what area? That's there's so much
True.
location and stuff like that. So if you like the area you're in today, that doesn't guarantee that you'll find a smaller. I guarantee you probably find a smaller home and it still be the same price your house is valued at right now.
Right.
So that's the problem we're running into. There's no. We think of those ideas of downsizing, but there's an impact especially from a house standpoint of doing those kind of big moves.
Although to your clients' issues. Could your client maybe work from home and get rid of the office entirely?
That's a possibility.
Could they downsize the office size? I mean, you're here in my offices right now. I don't necessarily need the amount of space that I have currently.
Right. That totally makes sense.
I could probably downsize the size of my office.
Have the clients come to you. Have the people come to you when it comes to the service that you're selling as well.
Now, again, I've looked.
That's a change in the way you do business, but is that possible?
To move my office back near the West Chase area, which is where I live, I think I'm going to about $20 a square foot. So, in other words, even though I would be downsizing to I'm at 1,500 square feet now, I could downsize to about 1,000, but I'd be paying more rent overall because it's more per square foot than it was when I leased this place.
Yep.
So, downsizing may not even be a good idea here for my law firm, but for your client, downsize?
Can they do that? I agree with you there as well. The only thing that I would say too is my recommendation when it comes to your home. You brought up a good. I would say if you have that much equity, if you need to get a refresh, just maybe refresh the house a little bit, because if it's you haven't done any remodeling in the last few years. It might be a good way to kind of refresh the home and have it create a new home itself, or restructure a room.
True.
Maybe so. There's always opportunities as some of the things that I recommend.
Yeah, it's
because we always go to sell, and it's like, wait a second, before you do that, maybe just refresh.
So that's interesting. I had a friend of mine who had a big screen TV that doesn't really work well. It's older. It's like a first generation.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay.
It's kind of a smart TV, but not
so
really. It only gets like 2 apps, and
it's
so
Netflix and Fandango.
Yeah. So she said, "We're not doing anything with this TV. Do you want it?"
Sure.
Well, we had what would be the formal living room in the house was the kids' play area.
Yep.
So we had, the cubbies and the boxes and the shelves and all that stuff. And then we had a big train table in the middle of the room where the kids could set up like Legos, or they could set up like the wooden train tracks, and they could do all that stuff. It was just taking up a bunch of space.
Sure.
So what I did was I took the train table out. We moved that into the garage. We were going to give it to a friend of mine. I took out one of the shelf cubbies of, with all the toys. We were able to consolidate a lot of the toys, or a lot of the cubbies became empty.
Yeah.
So I was able to take one whole shelf unit out. I was able to move around another shelf unit. I was able to put my wife had this old Papasan chair that really was just a storage space for clean or dirty laundry, depending on whether
There
we've
you
done
go.
laundry or not.
Right.
And then I got a bean bag from another friend of mine. So we basically turned this toy room that would be made for kids that are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old into a video game room.
There you go.
I plugged in the big screen TV. I hooked up. I have 3 video game systems. So I have my old PlayStation.
Nice.
One of the little, the little Nintendo, like the replica,
Sure.
but like the mini ones.
Yeah.
We hooked up one of those, and then my kids have their Nintendo Switch.
Okay.
So we hooked all of those up to this TV.
To the TV.
And so now all the kids come over and they all sit in the papasan and the beanbag, and I'll probably put a couch in that room at some point.
Put them in an area where they can't dirty the rest of the house.
Right. And it's out of the way. They're not using the big
Smart
TV
move.
that I use to watch.
Yep.
But it was a refresh to the house.
Yeah.
And it makes the house feel different.
It's a new feel, new to you, and that's the other thing too. We always feel like we have to sell or get rid of or do something, and sometimes we just, especially for the home. I'm sorry, it's such a huge investment. Especially when we talk about downsizing, and if you got to get out of a neighborhood or you got to move states, that's a different situation. But I always look at it as if there's an opportunity for us to use some of the equity to put back into the home, especially if you love being there and want to continue to be there as well. Just invest in the house. We invest in ourselves. We don't just get rid of I get rid of myself. And no, you invest in yourself for that growth. And why can't we do it at some of the things that we care about and we use as well?
And something that made me think of is, again, some of these concepts will work at home or in your business.
In your business, yeah.
So is there something, every once in a while you see it. Every once in a while I switch up things here at the office where I'll move files around. I'll clean off my desk. I'll throw stuff away that's old. I go through, I have a file, and once stuff in that file gets to be more than a year or so old, I shred it. I toss it.
Right.
Can you get rid of stuff? Can you declutter and make your life easier? I just went through, it was funny. I was thinking there was a time about a year and a half ago where we had one working TV in the house. I now have 6.
There you go.
In just a year, I went from one TV
Squad
to
goals.
6. Yeah.
Well, you got 2 kids who would want to watch their own thing. So
Well, I got the one that was donated.
Yep.
I got the one we've always had, the big one we've always had.
Mm-hmm.
I got the one that was donated. I got for Black Friday and Christmas sales, Walmart had the TVs on sale for $100, so I got 2 of those for $100.
Nice.
I got the one for outside. Oh, I got 3 of them. One for outside, one for my son, and one for my bedroom. And then there was
I'm surprised there's not one for the toilet.
well, there was an old TV in the room that we use as an office. There was an old TV in there, and I tried. This is kind of a mistake we had with our mics. I couldn't get the TV to turn on.
Uh-oh.
I would hit the power button, TV wouldn't turn on. I'd hit the power button on the remote, TV wouldn't turn on. Hit the power button on the TV, TV wouldn't turn on. I looked, the TV is plugged into the extension cord, wouldn't turn on. So I'm like, forget it, the TV's dead.
TV's dead. What's
I'll get a
wrong
new
with the TV?
Well, I was cleaning out the office area the other day. It was one of those, I couldn't sleep. I was kind of emotional about what was going on with my wife, and I was like, forget it. Let me take some of this nervous energy, and I started cleaning up the office room.
Sure.
I cleaned up the bookcase that is in front of the outlet that the extension cord was not plugged into.
Of course.
So the TV was plugged into the extension cord. Extension cord wasn't plugged into the wall. So that's why the TV didn't work.
Yeah.
So once I plugged the TV into the wall, that TV works.
Look at that.
So I got a 6th. So now we went from one TV to 6 TVs.
To many TVs. And,
Right.
and, obviously in every room and every closet.
But is that something you can do at your business? Can you declutter?
Yeah.
Will that help?
Yeah. I would say, especially when you're in crisis mode, we're in these modes where we have to think of things differently. I would say, at home and the business, there's got to be ways to be able to do things, a few things differently so that you're not, I don't know. It's just like we feel like we do this. Let's just continue doing what we're doing and hope something changes.
Right.
And it's not the right approach. I really don't think. I think what we need to try to figure out is where are we, what changes we need to make from a business and personal standpoint so that we stop being in this hole that we keep digging ourselves in.
Well, and I think, to go back to the original title of the episode, how much debt do I need to have to file bankruptcy? A lot of times what I'll say to clients is more than you can afford to repay over a reasonable period of time. So if it'll take you 5 years to pay it off and you're good with that, you don't need to file bankruptcy.
Right.
If you look at it and you say, I'm never going to pay this off, bankruptcy may be a good idea. Now, with your client's situation, there's some other factors in there in terms of
taxes,
and the ownership of the business itself, because the business is an asset. It's an LLC or corporation, so it is an asset. So that factors in. What debts have been personally guaranteed, that factors in. So there's a couple other factors in terms of a business owner. But the general answer to the question is you file bankruptcy when you have more debt than you can afford to repay in a reasonable period of time.
Reasonable period of time. Well, there you go. I will keep you updated in regards to this situation, and obviously I will take my anti-anxiety pills to make sure I don't get into those problems.
There you go. So I do want to mention real quick our friend, our sponsor, our longtime sponsor, Sam Cohen with Attorneys First Insurance. Again, if you're an attorney or title company and you need malpractice coverage, contact Sam at attorneysfirst.com. You can also support the show by going to Patreon/CrushingDebt. You can support us there. If you want to learn more about the MoneyMax system, if you think you can become debt-free in a reasonable period of time, MoneyMax will be your GPS to get you there. I'll post the link to my affiliate account with MoneyMax. I think it's moneymaxaccount.com/Yesner, I think is what it is, but it'll
be in the show notes, right?
It'll be in the notes. I'll get it done that way. Other than that, anything else?
I would say, guys, one day at a time. When it comes to debts and budgeting, I would say start somewhere. But boy, it's very easy to get into the hole, not so much to get out of it. So
well, it's one thing that I always tell to clients too is you didn't get into this hole overnight. You're not going to get out of this hole overnight.
Correct.
So just keep plugging away.
That's it. There you go. I love it.
Meanwhile, I guess we can end it there, and we can say we hope that at the end of the month you have more money rather than at the end of the money you have more month, and we will talk to you in next week's episode.